I was sitting in the kitchen of the party room, hidden behind that door that slammed endlessly as the waiters rushed in and out, and I was looking at the plate of food that no one had offered me, but that someone had left in front of me as if it were a favor, or perhaps out of obligation. The rice was already cold, the sauce clotted around the edge, as if even it had lost its enthusiasm. The hall on the other side of the door was buzzing with laughter, loud music, toasts, and beautiful people in expensive clothes that I, with sacrifice and overdue bills, had helped to pay for. And there I was, invisible, leaning against the grimy kitchen wall with my new dress, which I'd bought in 10 installments, wrinkling at the back because of the grease that stuck to the tiles. My son, my own blood, passed through me 3 times, without seeing me. His eyes scanned the room looking for important faces, strategic smiles, a perfect pose for the photos. He smiled at the guests, at the bride, at the new family that now orbited around him like a newly discovered sun. And me? I was just there, like a shadow out of the frame. I smiled too, of course. Smiling was what I knew how to do, what I'd been taught to do for as long as I could remember. Smile when it hurt. Smile so as not to cause it. Smile and bear it. Smile and pay the bill at the end, even if I was the only one who knew the value of it all. Susan, the mother of the bride, paraded through the hall in a sparkling pink dress that probably cost more than my 3-month rent. She hugged my son as if she had been the one who had stayed up all night when he had a fever at the age of 8, as if she had been the one who had worked 2 jobs to pay for the dental treatment he needed at 15, or who had held his hand in hospital when he cried out in pain after breaking his arm. It was as if I had been erased from the script, relegated to the role of an extra, a backstage character. I pretended not to see when they called for the family photo. I pretended not to hear the speeches thanking everyone, the godparents, the friends, even the salon owner, except me. Always except me. Even the bottle of wine I'd brought as a present, the one I'd chosen so carefully, had disappeared from the table before I could see if they'd put my name on the tag. A waiter, too, young to be carrying that fatigue on his shoulders, approached, holding a tray of snacks. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. "Shall I ask you to heat up your plate, ma'am?" I shook my head. It wasn't hunger, it was something else. A knot in my throat, thick and tight, that didn't even allow air to pass through, properly. On the other side of the door, the sound of glasses clinking and the best man's voice on the microphone. "Family is what keeps us together." I laughed. A short, dry laugh that came out more like a hoarse breath than a real sound. I picked up my bag from the floor, the brown leather one with faded edges, and felt my cell phone vibrate. It was my sister. "Do you see this? They got, Susan to dance with Daniel before you did." I didn't answer. I had nothing else to say. I looked around the kitchen. Piles of dirty pans, a cook chopping vegetables in a hurry, the insistent smell of burning oil, and thought about all the times I'd settled for crumbs. All the times I smiled when I wanted to cry, thanked when I deserved an apology, made myself small to fit into the corners that were left. The music changed. That romantic ballad that plays at every wedding started. I knew it. It was the dance. Daniel, my son, and the woman he now called his mother. My hands, which had been shaking since I arrived, suddenly became still. I took out my cell phone and opened the bank app. First, I canceled the photographer's final payment. Then the 1-month anniversary cake that they were planning to cut tomorrow. Finally, the Sunday brunch reservation at the fancy restaurant where, incidentally, they hadn't even included me on the list. 3 rings, less than 5 minutes. 3 decisions that gave me a piece of myself back. I put the phone away and looked at the swinging door. With each swing, a piece of the party, the sparkle of the crystal chandelier, the white flowers I had chosen, my son smiling as if sadness had never made its home in him. I grabbed my coat and went out the back door. No one saw me leave. In the street, the muffled sound of the party faded into the background. Just my heels breaking the silence on the asphalt and the night wind on my face. I took a deep breath. The air was pure, without expensive perfume or the smell of overpriced food. Just the ordinary night wind, the same one that blows for everyone. When I got home, I took off my shoes and dropped them on the hallway floor with a thud that echoed through the house. I took a long shower, letting the water run down my skin until I got the smell of the party off my skin. I put on my old robe and went out onto the balcony with a cup of tea, just the way I like it. Strong, unsweetened, hot. The phone was vibrating. Daniel, Emily, Daniel again, my sister, Aunt Marlene. I didn't answer. I looked up at the sky. The stars were there, serene, silent. They always were. It's just that I was so busy staring at the ground that I didn't notice. The next morning, I woke up to the sun streaming in through the curtainless window. My phone was full of messages in capital letters. Why didn't the photographer show up? They canceled the restaurant. Where's the cake? I turned off my cell phone and went to make coffee. While the water was heating up, I opened the kitchen drawer and took out that little yellow notebook I used to use to make lists. Lists of groceries, bills, Christmas presents that he never really appreciated. I turned the page over and wrote at the top in big letters, things I want to do. Change the lock on the front door. Buy that orange armchair that I always liked but never bought because it didn't fit. Call Claire and arrange the lunch. We've been putting off for 3 years. I had my coffee right there, standing, looking at the garden I'd planted myself, but which I hardly ever stopped to admire. The landline rang. I let it ring. It was Daniel, only he still called that number. The machine picked up and I heard his voice, tense, accusing. You're acting like a child. You've ruined the most important day of my life. I picked up my cup and went out into the yard. The sun warmed my face. I closed my eyes. I thought about what it would be like to wake up tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, without having to ask myself if I'd done enough, if I'd given enough, if one day would finally be enough. I already was. I always was. I'd just forgotten. When I got back inside, I deleted the message without listening to the end. I took my keys and left. At the flower shop, I bought a vase of lilies. I've always loved lilies, but avoided them because of Daniel's allergy. At the furniture store on the other side of town, which I always thought was too far, I walked calmly in. The armchair was there in the window as orange as the sunset. I sat down in it. I fit in. It was mine. The saleswoman smiled. Is it for a present? Yes, I replied with a full smile. It's for me. I paid in cash. I left the address for delivery. I left in no hurry. On the way, I passed a movie theater. They were showing that French movie I'd been wanting to see for months, but could never convince anyone to go with me. I bought a ticket, sat alone in the middle row with a bucket of popcorn that was all mine. When the lights went out and the screen came on, I took a deep breath and let the movie take me. Without fear of being alone, without needing permission to exist, I was there, and that was enough.